We are recording. I'm still going to keep an eye and allow all these individuals who are a little bit late to join us. We are Multifamily Masters. We have 60 plus meetups around the country. We were built on the concept of community, the concept on adding as much value as possible, because this is a team sport and we can go a lot further together. My name is Garrison Gilbert. I have my business partner, Miss Elsa Nguyen. I have a good friend of mine, Mr. Sanjay Patel, who's going to help me co-host this thing. Sanjay, feel free, go ahead, introduce yourself, my friend, and then Elsa, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then I will introduce Miss Christy and Mr. Douglas.
Hi, I'm Sanjay Patel. I'm here in Northern Virginia, just outside Washington, D.C. I run the Northern Virginia chapter of Multifamily Masters. We meet in person once a month, and we do a number of webinars as well. I have 130 doors as a general partner and over 800 as a limited partner. So
last year, Sanjay helped me close a 60 unit, helped Elsa and myself close a 60 unit in Pittsburgh. And Sanjay just closed another 80 plus unit in Cincinnati, Ohio at the end of June. So with that being said, Mr. Sanjay, much appreciated. Sanjay, feel free to throw your contact information in the chat below. Anyone else who's watching this, feel free to throw your contact information in the chat below. This is all about adding people to your database, adding people to your CRM. With that being said, Miss Elsa Nguyen, my number one business partner, someone who I communicate with on a daily basis. She crosses all the T's, dots all the I's, makes sure that we stay on point in terms of bookkeeping, record keeping, raising capital, and everything of that sort. Go ahead, Miss Elsa, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Garrison. Yes, my name is Elsa Nguyen, and I have the honor of working with Garrison the last, 3, 4, 5 years. I can't remember. We close maybe, over close to 300 units together. And I'm a multifamily coach. Came from, spent about 15 years in accounting or so before I got into real estate full time. And that's about it. Working on with Garrison on an assisted living projects right now in California, and we are looking to grow that business model as well alongside with multifamily.
Absolutely. My name is Garrison Gilbert. I am one of the founding members of Multifamily Masters. I've been a full-time real estate investor for, this makes me sound old, 22 plus years now. I started right out of college, couldn't find a job. I had to figure it out the hard way. I just went and started buying little cheap houses in the hood in Baltimore City, a place where nobody says I'm going to move to Baltimore and start buying real estate. But I had no choice. We had to make it happen. 2015, I got into multifamily specifically. 2017 or 18, I was nominated Multifamily Real Estate Investor of the Year by Think Realty Magazine. And this is where we're at today. With that being said, I'm going to introduce someone who is very hands-on with our Multifamily Masters Mastermind and Partnership Program, Miss Christy, and I'm going to introduce her brother, Douglas. They have a lot of real estate background. They have a lot of business background. Tonight, we're going to dive into all the headaches, all the things that can go wrong, all the things that will go wrong, and what did they learn from their first 90-unit apartment building purchase? What would they do differently moving forward? And the biggest thing I want to know is, because I already know what all the headaches were to a large degree, but I want to talk the second part of the show about how the hell did you turn it around? How did you save this thing? I never thought you would make it happen. So I'm super proud of both of you guys. Christy, feel free, give us an intro about you, your background, and then hand it off to Doug. Let him give us an intro about him and his background.
Hi, my name is Christy Higa. I originally had moved from Alaska to Dayton, Ohio. I went with 2 kids, 6 suitcases, and I had $500 in my pocket and big dreams of real estate. And so my brother Douglas here, he was already doing real estate in Dayton, and he was kicking ass in Dayton. He was my personal development mentor. He was my real estate mentor, and I owned 8 houses after the first 2 months of working with him. It just grew exponentially from there. And so we were owners and operators of over 100 units and the stuff that we were doing together. We had a wholesaling company that we were running. We had a construction company. We had a management company, and we kind of kept all of those pieces in-house. And so Doug was kind of the foundation of teaching me about how to put together my scopes of work, teaching me how to run my projects, teaching me how to manage my contractors. And that's why everything was successful, because I had somebody who knew all the rounds, knew exactly what to do, and I couldn't have picked someone better to learn from.
Thank you. Thank you for that, man. My name's Douglas Higa, and I started investing in Dayton, Ohio in 2014. I bought my first 10-plex. I was a general contractor for 28 years, so all we do is do value adds, and I had the opportunity to buy a distressed 10-plex. I thought I was going to live the dream of just collecting mailbox money, but that turned out to be a little far-fetched. I had the opportunity of paying debt service for the first 2 months out of my 10-plex that I just bought, because I was getting doused in maintenance costs. So what I did is I decided to take over management myself, start a construction company again here in Dayton, and a management company, and just basically become vertically integrated all the way up from the buy to the dispo. So I had that once I took control of that, it went tremendously well, and we started to grow exponentially. I think at our highest peak, we had a little over 380 doors, and we grew too fast and too quick. And one of the results of that was this 90 unit that I'm going to tell you about here, and what happened, and what I learned, and exactly like Garrison said, how we turn this thing around.
So let me ask you a quick question, Doug. You went from buying that 10-unit complex. When did you start buying real estate, and when did you buy the 90 unit? What was that time frame like?
Okay, so I bought my first 10-plex in 2014, right at the end of 2014. And then I managed to get my hands on a 157 door portfolio in 2017.
Nice.
All value add.
And when did you buy this 90 unit that we're talking about today?
This 90 unit was purchased in 2020, if I remember.
Okay.
I don't think the year's very good, but it was purchased in 2020, and we had bridge financing on it. We completed the bridge financing with patch of land and put it into permanent refinancing 18 months ago. Okay.
So give me a breakdown, either one of you guys. Tell me about all the headaches. Tell me kind of what started to lead you to see that there were headaches. What was kind of the writing on the wall? And what did that first couple months of ownership look like whenever you got into this 90 unit?
The first couple months of ownership, when we very first got into it, was just doing a lot of repairs. Like I said, it was a value add. That's what we do. We were remodeling basically the whole thing.
Okay. And then so you bought it, you started remodeling it. When did you start experiencing headaches with it? How deep into it were you?
So this happened about 8 months ago. 8 months ago, I received a letter from a Berkadia loan servicer informing me that the mortgage had not been paid for 3 months on this 90 unit.
And that caught you by surprise, I'm guessing?
Yeah, well, I had a partner in a COO. I inquired with the COO, and he responded, well, haven't you reviewed the bank statements? And that wasn't my end of things. So I said, I don't even know the bank account number. I'm the one that gets the money. We had hired someone to handle financials, and would always get excuses that they were almost there, or we almost got it, and stuff like that. So I had no idea of the financial status of the property. I was the visionary, more the integrator.
I got you. And your name was on the loan, or you and your partner's name was on the loan?
I was the primary.
Okay. So you own this property about 2.5 years. All of a sudden you get a letter out of the blue that says, Mr. Douglas, you're 3 months behind on your mortgage, sir. What the hell did that thought process look like?
Well, instantly, failure to failure. It comes as a shock, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that I could have done differently. But ultimately, it was the failure to meet the debt service obligations results in the application of default interest, and it's often at a rate of 29.5% or higher. The default interest is an additional interest rates that's applied when you're in default. They kind of stab you in the back extra hard if you don't make the payment. In this particular case, the accumulation of default interest, it was about 48,000 over the 3 months. But fortunately, I was able to negotiate an agreement with the company's attorneys once the foreclosure was suggested. And in that deal, I was able to apply the 3 months default interest to the back of the loan and then pay it upon refinance, and then bring the loan current with the debt service payments that had been neglected.
So at that point in time, did that lender force you into an early refinance, or did they say, hey, okay, I understand, let's fix this, let's work together?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate. They didn't force me into like a 12-month period to refinance. I got to keep the remaining 3 years of my loan. And like I said, they tacked that default interest in the back. All I had to do was bring the arrears up.
Okay. So whenever you approached, what was the name of it? Berkadia? Is that who you said?
Berkadia was the servicer. Corvest was the lender.
Whenever you approached the servicer and the lender and you said, hey, I didn't know that I was in default, is that kind of like they look at you and say, yeah, I've heard this story before, or kind of how did that conversation go?
Yeah, I kind of got the idea that hey, we want our money, or we want you gone. There was no personal niceties in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, that's they just wanted to get their money. But I had a feeling, that they didn't want to foreclose on this thing. They're not a real estate management company. They're a bank. They do their thing, we do our thing. So that's why I thought that I would have a little leverage in a negotiation. I had heard a lot of different stories from a lot of different multifamily real estate investors who have been in foreclosure, like, oh yeah, well, they'll just tack your default onto the back of the loan, and then then they'll bring you up current, or they'll want to buy you out at a discount so that they don't lose their principal. But ultimately, the what we came to was this.
Whenever you first got that letter, what kind of stress was that? What kind of headache was that? What kind of sleepless nights did that look like? Like, how did life look for those couple weeks?
Oh my gosh, man, it was a shot. It was a shot to the arm, man. I'll be honest with you. I lost a lot of confidence in it. I got some serious shell shock from that, because you're rocking and rolling, you're thinking everything's going along good, and then all of a sudden
It's almost like a divorce blindsiding you a little bit.
Yeah, it's absolutely a divorce. It was divorced with my ex-partner, and it was a shell shock. I stressed, but I don't know. I had an idea, and something inside me said, hey, this is going to work out. We just got to persevere. So
good. So with that being said, you get a letter, Douglas, you owe us a bunch of money. You haven't paid 3 months worth of mortgages. You lose sleep for a couple nights. You got a bunch of headaches. You're trying to figure things out. From the sounds of it, you had a partner on the deal. How hands-on was the partner? How did that look? What did that relationship what did that communication look like? Without really throwing anybody under the bus or bad-mouthing anybody, but in general, what did that whole month look like?
Yeah, so it was basically boiled down to, I was a CEO. I was doing my thing. You're the COO. You're doing your thing.
So hold on. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What was your main responsibility in this business, in this partnership, prior to you getting that letter? And then how did it turn after that letter?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so my main responsibility was finance. I would get the financing for everything, and I would get the money. Anything to do with the financing or the financials, I would do. How that and then I would be as a kind of a supervisory role on operations, but not fully immersed in it. What happened after that is I became, we no longer, put it this way, we no longer we're looking for financing. We were no longer, looking for acquisitions. We were no longer doing any of the stuff that I was doing in the past. I went straight into hardcore operations. So I became an integrator overnight to get this thing salvaged.
I got you. What did that whole process look like from going from instability to stability? How long did that take? What did that look like? How stressful was that?
Okay, so my first idea was to liquidate this pig, clear my credit, move to a different project. And I considered this option because of what we owed on the asset would almost be covered at the discount quick sale. And by selling it at a substantial discount, we could either break even or minimize out-of-pocket expenses. That plan didn't work. I was like challenged with trying to find a buyer for it at that. And how this asset was positioned with so many renovations and occupancy at 68%, nobody could see the value of it on paper. So I went to 6 different investors, and 6 different investors turned the deal down, primarily because of the property's condition that it was in, and the necessary work appeared insurmountable on paper. And
Sure.
Nobody had the vision, and nobody could see past the financials and the amount of work that needed to be done. So
And
then
so-
I had.
I was
Go
going to say
ahead.
this is only 8 months ago. So how did the last 8 months or so, how did that look, and how did that kind of break down?
Yeah. So since nobody could see the vision in this thing, I went on I started searching for liquidity. The whole project required about a $468,000 capital injection, and that included default and arrears. And to address and to fund the necessary renovations, we figured it would probably cost about $15,000 a door. And this was a bare bones construction cost budget that would improve the units just basically above all of my competition in the area and get them leased quickly. So to secure capital, after we did that, to secure capital, I made the decision to liquidate some of my personal assets and leverage the credibility that I had built over the years. Thankfully, my track record of successfully delivering on deals and consistently repaying lenders paid off. So then I was able to get two private lenders that I had done work with in the past. A couple of buddies of mine were willing to provide the remaining balance on the strength of my signature, and that enabled me to complete the necessary renovations to turn the property around.
Fantastic. Relationships are everything, man.
Everything. Yeah,
absolutely.
And if there was one thing that I would stress, being in a multifamily mastermind like this and knowing people and having those relationships was the one thing that I think that turned this thing around when no one else saw the vision.
Absolutely. And that's a good attitude. So with that being said, were there any other skeletons that were kind of uncovered during this process? And before you answer that, let me go with Sanjay. Sanjay, keep an eye on the chat below. I see we have like 40 some messages. And number one, anyone who's on this call, feel free to throw your contact information below, including Douglas, Christy, Sanjay, Elsa, anyone who's on this call, throw it below. But Sanjay, keep an eye on those questions, and feel free to just kind of interrupt, break in a little bit, and shoot those questions out if any of them are relevant according to this specific kind of where we're at in the conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, go ahead, Sanjay.
I gather from what you said that this was a joint venture, but there was a question about whether this was a joint venture or syndication. Someone was asking about that.
No, it wasn't a syndication, and the only JV would be my ex-partner's ability to do operations and my ability to finance.
Okay,
So-
so there's no option of doing like a capital call or anything like that. Okay.
No. That would have been nice. No capital calls.
Okay.
Nice. Any other questions, Mr. Sanjay? And if
And,
anyone does have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat below, or feel free just to raise your hand once we get to the open Q&A here in a little bit.
Yeah.
And at the time that it was in arrears, what was the occupancy? Were you cash flowing at all, or?
No, there was zero cash flow. When I pulled into it, it was 68% occupied, and it was basically just paying the bills.
Okay, so on top of being in arrears, you also needed to get the occupancy and everything built up. And that's what you were talking about with the updates.
Yeah, so there was occupancy that needed to be filled, and the units that were not occupied either needed to be turned from past previous tenants, or they needed just a full reconstruction, a full construction that never happened in the first bridge loan. So it was tight. It was really tight.
And one person was asking if you could talk in real numbers. Do you have an idea of how much you owed and how much you were short?
Yeah, let's break that down. So what did you buy this property for, Douglas and Christy?
So originally we bought it for 1.2. Then we put
Damn, hold on. 90 units for 1.2. How much work did that need?
everything.
And then some.
Was that a complete, was that planning on doing a complete renovation on it?
Yeah. So we bought it at, like I said, we only do value add. So we bought it at 1.2. It was part of a portfolio, and that's just the kind of the breakdown of how it went. And we put 2 million into it to get it up to where we could actually get it to a refinance level, get it up to about 90% occupancy and get it to where the DSCR would meet at 1.2. I think it was 1.26. And then we refinanced it once we were in there, and we were into it for, I think, about 3.5.
So all of this happened after you refinanced it?
Yeah, this happened like right
Gotcha.
as soon as this was refinanced. This is when the crap started to hit the fan, so to speak.
So do you think that operator, do you think they were kind of slacking a little bit before the refinance, or do you think they just dropped the ball after the refi?
I think it was operations the whole way through, to be honest with you. I mean, as I
Gotcha.
look back at it now and I look at what we did to turn this place around, it's very obvious that, that they just didn't have the skills necessary.
So with that being said, you finally get this letter, Mr. Douglas, Mrs. Christie, you are 90 days behind. You're about to get foreclosed on. You got a month of probably sleepless nights, headaches, stress, all of this stuff. What other issues popped up? There has to be other issues that pop up whenever we're talking about this kind of financial devastation.
Yeah, that's smart of you. You've been around the block, I can tell. So the skeletons in the closets were units that the skeletons in the closets were really the units that were vacant, hadn't even been turned, and that's associated with operations. A lot of them were full, complete renovations that just for some reason skipped off the radar. We also had water bills that were beyond anything that I've ever seen, because at the time there was a water leak, and one of the buildings had $6,000 or $7,000 water bills for almost 2 quarters, and that kind of skipped over everyone's mind at that that high water wasn't meaning anything. So that was definitely a skeleton in the closet. And along with that high water bill, I had to go and take all of the underground plumbing and put it above in chases and walls so that we wouldn't be leaking all that water out. But the biggest one was probably the water leak and the water bills. I was looking at the financials in hindsight, and that was taking up all the money. We're just paying for water, and
And that was never brought to anyone's attention or any handyman, like, hey, you might want to go check this out.
Well, I don't know what happened. It just, man, for some reason, whoever was paying those bills didn't realize that that's a high water bill, I suppose. I mean, it's not, I don't know. It's hard to explain when you don't have that common sense.
Yeah, hindsight 2020, hindsight 2020.
You didn't have anyone to review the books. I do have a couple of questions, Garrison, if you don't mind.
Yeah, and actually here, let me break this. This is actually why I do business with Elsa. Elsa would tell you that I would be the guy that would miss the water bill for 3 or 4 months. That's a true story. Do you agree with that, Elsa? I would miss that.
Garrison, I would miss it and did miss it.
100%. But that's why I partner with Elsa, who, number one, she lives on the opposite side of the country from me. Number two, she's very, very detailed and I'm big picture. Number three, she's a CPA / bookkeeping / CFO type of background, where I'm just a real estate guy and I can maneuver and figure all this stuff out. But if you don't have both sides of that, you're going to absolutely take an L in this business, and you're going to learn it one way or the other. I would rather learn it by listening to stories like this and try to avoid stories like this, so that me and my family don't lose sleep, don't lose food on our table, or whatever the hell the repercussions might be down the road. So go ahead, Miss Elsa, go ahead and launch a couple questions.
Thank you. So I'm going to take it back to the very beginning, because I think a lot of us here, I'm not here just to learn about how you maneuver through the loan process, but let's take it back from the beginning when you bought this property for $1.2 million. And that is a killer price for 92 units in Ohio. I'm sure you came up with a budget, a CapEx renovation plan for this. And did you stay within the budget? What went wrong? If you were to go back and do it differently, besides reviewing all the bills that came in, what else would you have done differently to save this deal or make it because, I think it would be a very profitable deal had you implemented all the strategy that you had in mind. So what went wrong, and what would you have done differently?
Yeah, so what went wrong, we did go over budget, and that's why the units that were unfinished were continuing to be unfinished even after the refinance. If I could do it over, and what went wrong was just the whole operation and how it went together. I mean, I'm sure there was a ton of money lost and money spent in unnecessary places. If I could do it over again, I would manage the operations hands-on. And if I couldn't handle the operations, then I would make sure that the person who handled the operations was exactly like me and how we turn this around.
Did you have a property manager, or were you doing this in-house?
No, we were doing everything in-house. And that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that I can think of, was we were doing too many things at too much time, growing too fast. And it seemed like we were just constantly putting out fires. Every day we would just put out fires, rather than preventative measures. If we would have really contained our growth and perfected our craft at a young 10 unit, 20 unit, company, then we could have grown a lot better. It was definitely the lack of financial information, because we were just doing everything like cowboys, and the operations.
Yeah, I totally hear you. A lot of time, even with the properties that we manage right now, we have our weekly calls, and I look over the books every week. And like Garrison said, I don't, because I have an accounting background. So I do look at every single number, line item, and I question them, because a lot of time they don't even know why the number is there until you dig into it, right? So it could have been one of the biggest causes for the failures of our business plan is because of those oversights.
And so Elsa, let me ask you a question. How often do you find inaccurate data from professional property managers to us on our weekly reports, if ever? And I don't know the answer to that.
So I reconcile the numbers on a monthly basis. What I do is that I take the number from them, I populate it into QuickBooks, and I would do a month-to-month comparison. So let's say last month we spent $10,000 on maintenance, but this month it's $15,000. Then I would ask them, why is it so much more? So I would break down all my expenses by line item: water, utility, gas, maintenance, labor, so on and so forth. And I would put another 12 months basis on a trailing 12 months. And if you look at it, you will see something pop out if it's not right. So in the case of Douglas, because of the water bill, nobody pay attention to it, but had you look at the P&L and you record it every month, you will know, oh my God, why is it went from here to here, right? And you would have caught it right away, and you would go in and fix that. So I look at all of our deals on a monthly basis. That's when I tell you, like this week, I got to block out this week to reconcile all of our numbers. That's what I do. But yeah, I totally hear you, because I catch a lot of mistakes. I caught where property managers don't send us money where they should send us, like, this is your number, but you only send me this much money. What's the difference? And they'll go, I don't know, but I'll pay you. I'll send you the difference, right? So things of that sort. But yeah, I really, I think, you definitely learn a lesson by doing that. Now, as far as the CapEx that you have implemented, boy, $1.2 million in Dayton, Ohio, the property probably needed a lot of work. So what are some of the major expenses that you have to put into the property to take it to the level where it is right now?
Oh, sorry about that. I just lost you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that. I lost you. I switched cross Bluetooth. Would you repeat that last question?
So can you give us some pointer, or maybe it's a high level of, let's say we buy a property, it's a value add property that needed some work, because I think a lot of us here are doing that. What are some of the major expenses should we be looking at? Can you give us a ballpark? Maybe Christy can help us with this too, because I know you help us on a lot of little stuff here and there. So in a ballpark, let's say we need to change the flooring for a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom apartment. What kind of numbers do we look at if we want to paint the house? So that way we can take that number and put it into our own, business plan or strategy when we underwrite a deal. Can you like to touch on that a little bit? Or fixing the water issue that you have?
Yeah. So on that, Elsa, you're absolutely right. Having those financials together would have saved this whole project. If I would have had someone with your skill level constantly giving me numbers, it would have worked out fine. As for CapEx, each individual, I couldn't speak to what's more important or what's not important, because each different project is going to have a specific scope of work, right? And that scope of work will vary from project to project. What I do have and what I do use is a cost itemization sheet for what we pay per project. So, and I mean not project, but per spec on a project. So for instance, for toilets, it's $100 for an install. For like LVP, I can look on my install sheet, and I can go to, $2.50 a foot install labor, and then we pay whatever for materials. I have a labor chart that keeps me in budget. And when I get estimates, then I can adjust, which budgets and which estimates are going to fit my budget.
Mhm.
I hope that answered your
I think
question.
some of the big things too, when you go into these big projects, you need to look at the plumbing system. It's worth it running those cameras down the drains just to make sure you don't have any big surprises in your CapEx. If you're looking at your electric boxes and you have federal electric systems, immediately all those boxes are going to have to be replaced. If you have a boiler versus HVAC, that's a huge expense to replace. And so you kind of want to get everything tested by professionals and make sure that everything's up to par.
Yeah. I think
I've
yeah.
seen some people do underwrite the numbers, and they would budget maybe $5,000 to $7,000 for a 2-bedroom, and which needs a new flooring, new paint, new kitchen cabinets. $7,000. They budget that much into that. Is that too little? Is that too much? Is it right in the ballpark?
For like per apartment here with materials and labor, I could go for a 2-bedroom, 800, 900 square foot apartment. I would probably cost me with materials and labor at a bare bones project would be anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000.
But if you're just doing flooring and you're just
But, yeah.
updating, like you're just doing paint, flooring, updating the kitchen, that's not going to cost $7,000.
No.
Those are cheap things.
Yeah, so we're looking more like 15 to 20,000.
I would say $15,000 to $20,000 for a door would be kind of a rough, pretty good estimate.
For a complete rehab.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Probably
like doing everything.
$20 a
Wow.
foot, $20, $25.
So let me ask you this. Whenever you found out, like, holy shit, we're behind mortgage on 3 months, what are we going to do? How many units did you still have to renovate after that?
Too many.
26.
Okay, and you were out of money at that point in time, I'm guessing? Question mark?
Oh
It
yeah.
was a negative.
Yeah.
So meaning your CapEx was already gone, it was blown through, it was whatever, but it wasn't there. So how did you, holy shit, we got to renovate 26 apartments, we have no money. What did that look like? And Christy, how did your contractor expertise come into play with this?
Well, I learned all my expertise from this man sitting right here. So everything that I talk about with contracting, it came from the man, Doug. He's the expert. He has 28 years of contracting experience. And so the very first thing when you have to deal with 26, 28 units is you create a scope of work. That is the most important piece in your renovation to your project. That's your business plan. That's what makes everything operate smoothly. And if you have every single detail in that scope of work, there's no guess about what needs to be done. You have a timeline, you have a plan, you have something for everyone to follow. It's your map. Like once you have that map down, you can execute, you can look quickly and say, hey, how are we going to generate money quickly? Well, here's our scopes on 5 different units. Which one can be done the quickest? And you can analyze so much faster if you have that in front of you.
Very good point. Well, Christy, you're very good at this. What was your biggest takeaway? What was your biggest learning experience with this whole 90-unit ordeal?
Keep your eye on the ball. Don't look away for even a second. Don't let someone else hold it. You got to watch where that's going.
Yeah.
Because it just takes one accident, not looking, one piece of paper, and it's gone. You just lost that month. You have no idea what's going on with your project. And it's so
Absolutely.
easy when there's 50 other things going on, you're not looking at that piece, and you should be, even if it's just once a week or once a month.
Yeah.
Make the time.
Absolutely. Hey, Sanjay, hit us with a couple more questions in the chat below, but real quick, anyone watching this, we are Multifamily Masters. We have 60 plus meetups across the country where we're built around the concept of community. We do this the 3rd Wednesday of every month. This is our Multifamily Masters Live. For anybody watching this, anybody who has not joined us in the past, we do this because we're all about free education, free content. We're all about making sure that people close deals the right way. We have a Multifamily Masters Mastermind, which Christy and Douglas are involved with. Christy is very hands-on with. But this is why we teach this business and how to close deals the right way. This is why we do these calls. It's so that you do not make these same mistakes. And I've come from some very big coaching programs. And in those big coaching programs, oftentimes you get the blind leading the blind to some degree, where you have a lot of people just, hey, let's go close deals. Let's go close deals. And you don't really realize all the negative things that can really happen in real life. This is real money we're talking about. This is money that you raise from your friends, your family, people that you worked with. And I'm not trying to sound negative, and I'm not trying to make this a scary business. Real estate is simple. Anybody can do what we're doing, anybody, but it's real money. You can lose real money, and you got to keep that in mind. And that's the purpose of these calls. So feel free to shoot any questions you got in the comments below. We're very fortunate to have Mr. Douglas and Miss Christie on this call to literally, we can pick their brains so that we don't make the same silly mistakes. And I say silly, it's silly because we're looking at them in hindsight, 20/20 vision whenever we're looking in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
You're in the thick of this, and I've lost my shirt on a shitload of deals over the last 20 years. Excuse my language. But these are the things you got to think about. These are the T's you got to cross, the I's you got to dot. This is why I have Elsa on my team. This is why Doug and Christy are now a team together, because they figured out what works for them, and you need to put yourself in a very similar position. So feel free, throw your contact information in the chat below. Feel free to grab everyone's contact information in the chat below. This is how you build your database. This is how you go further in this business. This is a team sport. I apologize for that. Elsa, go ahead. Sanjay or Elsa,
Yeah.
feel free to ask a couple more
I
questions.
think Michael has his
go ahead,
hand
Elsa.
up. Oh, I was just saying, I think I saw Michael Menimo has his hand up, has his hand on.
Go. Go ahead, Mr. Michael Menino, hit me.
I had to unmute myself. Sorry about that. Yeah, on the camera too.
If you're going to ask a question, you got to turn your camera on, homie. Oh, never mind. He did it quicker than I didn't have a chance. This is a good friend of mine. This is another gentleman in our mastermind and partnership program.
I just want to talk to you. I've been a builder for 30 years, and we have a spreadsheet for every unit. We duplicate each unit. The ease of repeating the same thing over and over is probably the best part. You know, you've got same amount of flooring in each unit, so you know about what you have to do in each, how many cabinets, how many toilets, how many backsplashes, how many surrounds, how many tubs, how many, you know, how much flooring, how much base, how much casing, how many doors. So you had 90 units. How did you organize the 90 units, and how much occupancy did you have that you had to work around to get the units up and running and get people into the good units and then go to the bad units? What did that look like? What organization skills
Hold on
did you
for
use
just a minute, you're cutting out.
You turn it off.
No, it won't go off. Sorry, we must have had a bad connection. We lost the last parts of your question. What was that?
Okay, basically the last part of the question is, how many occupants did you have, and how did you work around them to get the completion to the 90%? Because if you got 30 people and that don't want to move, you got to get to 90% occupancy, that's going to be a tough trick. And then 30, you know, in a unit like you're talking about, probably a lot of them weren't paying. So
Yeah.
how did you get the contractors? How many contractors did you use, and how long did it take you from start to finish?
Okay, so all of the units that we needed to renovate were all unoccupied. So they were vacant units. So it was very simple to just go in and get those scopes of work and get the work done. We did one after the other, like you said. We do enough volume with Home Depot that we can get a personal projects manager and itemize the 1 bedrooms and the 2 bedrooms. So we just order them out as we need them. What was the last part?
The last part was how you organized everything, right? How many
Yeah.
contractors used?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And how many contractors?
Yeah. So with the contractors, we didn't have enough contractors to fill this job because we wanted to do 3 to 5, at a minimum, we wanted to do 3 units a week because these are 900 square foot units, and you can bust through them pretty quick with the right crews. I went to Home Depot and asked for references from the pro desk on who's the most on-time contractors, who's here the most, who's always working here, you know, who's always ordering. And I got that list from 3 of my friends at the pro desks, and that's how we found our new talent. And then what I did is I just had them estimate it out, and in between those estimates, we were able to find our superstars to add to our team so that we could complete those three apartments a week. The total turnaround was just about 8 months, and that was about 26 units.
Yeah, one thing too that we were doing is that as a unit would finish, we would move tenants that were in the older units into the new units, and then we were able to renovate those units. And one of the problems that you run into with these big projects is that when you have 90 units and you have so many teams, you need to make sure that a unit is completed before they move on. So everything A to Z is completely done, checked off the list, and then you go to the next unit. Otherwise, you're going to end up with 20 units that all have little things done in between them, and nothing ever gets rented.
Yeah.
Very good point. Very good point.
Yep. And so Douglas, you said, I believe your original CapEx budget was 2 million. Did you do did you go back and see what caused the overrun and what you might have been able to do different in that regard?
Oh, yeah, I wish I could have. The financials then were as bad as they were now.
Yeah, the back then the finances were like 6 months behind. The bookkeeper was literally like 6 months behind, and we're like, "Hey, what's going on?" She's like, "I got every single penny from 6 months ago." It's like, well, we kind of need today. We need to look at right now, and it was just a bookkeeping nightmare.
And that's another credit to Elsa and what she does.
Oh yeah.
If I wouldn't even probably be in that situation that I was in 8 months ago if I would have been able to just look at those financials and be able to rely on those and actually, you know, be able to see them and know that they're true. It would have solved a lot of problems so quickly, and we could have got them at such an early start that we wouldn't even have to worry about them. So
give me your 3 biggest takeaways from this project, the 3 biggest things that you would do differently if you were buying your first 90 unit today. Christy or Doug, either one of you.
Well, the operator's number one. You've got to select an operator that can deliver.
Yeah, it's definitely the operator. The deal was there in this particular unit. The deal was there, so you got to make sure that the deal's good too. You know what I mean? You've got to make sure that your deal's going to make sense, and this deal made that. I would just keep my eyes. My biggest one was the finances. If I could have just known and had that piece to my puzzle, I wouldn't have gotten into so many different problems. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so along with, but you know, in the end, you know, it's, you know, everything terrible turns into a blessing. So in the end, this turned into a really good thing because I got to be intimate with every aspect of my business. I got to know the demo. I got to know the leasing. I got to know the construction. I got to know the move outs and everything. And it was out of necessity. And I'm not saying that that's what you should do, but I got to be involved in everything so that I know exactly the pieces that I need and what they need to do. It's a hard way to learn, but you know, and as I look back, it's an operator, it's the financials, it's the deal makes sense, and what's your team doing, and can you completely rely on them?
It's a hard thing to learn. It's an expensive thing to learn, and it's a time-consuming thing to learn. But you got to learn it, and you got to learn it one way or the other. You're gonna pay for this education through, I hate to use the word school of hard knocks for lack of a better term. I hate that term, but you're either going to learn it the hard way by doing it and going through it and figuring it out as you do it. And that's how I learned real estate way back in my 20s. I had no money for education. There were no such thing as these Zoom meetings and RIAs and meetups and all that great stuff. Utilize the resources at your disposal. Hang out with people like this. Hang out with Douglas. Hang out with people like Christy. Pick their brains. Get to know them, so that you don't make the same damn mistakes. So what else would be the biggest takeaways from Christy or Doug that you're just like, man, I can't believe that I did that. I can't believe that I was that naive. I can't believe that I overlooked X, Y, or Z. You know, everything's 2020 in the rearview mirror. What would you do differently?
Don't
Yeah.
have too many pieces going at once that you can't control. If you're moving too fast, you got to slow down, and then you got to get a control of those pieces, and then you can go fast again. And then if it
Come to the
goes
zen.
exactly, then if it's too out
Yeah.
of control, you got to slow down a little bit.
Man, we were like so amped on growth, man. We were just like going through the roof, and we thought we were the best and this was the greatest. But man, if we would have just brought it back home just for a minute, focused and concentrated, and really perfected our craft at an early age, we wouldn't have made these things. And I have to agree with you, Garrison. You know, I mean, if I would have saw myself 3 years ago in this with this free education that you provide, man, just imagine
Yeah.
Yeah.
the wisdom that we would gain.
But you know what? You don't know what you don't know. You're going to learn it one way or another. And just like you said, you know what? I've burnt myself on so many projects, so many businesses that I've tried to jump into. And it might seem like the end of the world today, but in 6 months or a year from now, you'll look back and it could very well, that could turn things around for your business. That could be one of the best things that have ever happened to you. You know, potentially if Doug didn't get that letter and wouldn't have went through all that stress for those 2-3 months, it could have been a nightmare 3 months down the road whenever that property went to foreclosure and he didn't even know about it. And then he ruined his credit, and then he wouldn't be able to bounce back and potentially do this again. Or to fix that project, you get a big loss like that, and it messes up with your psyche a little bit, and you start to lose self-confidence, and then you don't want to do another deal. That's why in this business, it's very important to stack your wins. Even your little wins, you need to celebrate. What I don't like seeing is people getting on social media and saying, hey, look at me. I just closed another deal. This is awesome. Next week, look at me. I closed another one. That means you're not focusing on operations. I don't celebrate when we close a deal. I celebrate when we exit a deal. I want to operate that deal as efficiently as possible and do what's right by our investors, our LPs, everyone who entrusted us with the hard-earned money that they worked so hard for throughout the last 20, 30, 40 years of their working career, potentially. You got to keep that in mind. So with that being said, Christy and Doug, Elsa, well, first, let me hit it with Sanjay. Are there any more questions in the chat below, my man?
Yeah, there is one other. Did the raise in interest rates affect your deal at all, or the cash flows and your, or was it, or did it all have to do with the operations?
No. I when we refinanced this thing a year and a half, 2 years ago, I locked in a 5.25 for 5 years. So I mean, and Garrison mentioned earlier, sometimes they'll shorten the term of your loan when you go into default. So they'll make it, hey, you got to refinance in 12 months or sell this place. Fortunately, that didn't happen. So there was a lot of scenarios that went right in this, but a lot that went wrong, and ultimately we learned from it.
And did you change anything in the way that you underwrite your properties now because of this?
No, I wouldn't change anything all my buy box is pretty set, and we underwrite properties with quite a bit of leeway, and we're able to do that because we take the dogs with fleas that nobody touches, really, because we own the construction company and we have control of that cost. So I would still keep it the same.
And to Douglas and Christie's credit, a big reason they're able to bounce back is because of that underwriting. When you buy a good deal, you allow yourself more opportunity to correct mistakes.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people buying deals right now that I look at this and I'm like, holy hell, that's negative cash flow. How are they going to make that thing work? If you experience even a little bump in the road, you're going to fail, plain and simple. But they had such a good property. And when they told me, when they just mentioned the price, 1.2 million, I think it was, for the first thing I said was, holy shit, how much work did that need? Because that is a great, great, great price. But with that great, great, great price comes a hell of a lot of hands-on physicality. Let's roll up our sleeves and let's make things happen. So to your credit, man, very, very good on your underwriting, that you were able to put yourself in such a hole, number one, which sucks, but you're able to bounce back and crawl out of that hole, which is miraculous. Very, very good to you guys. You guys should be celebrating and patting yourselves on the back.
Yeah, we are
Sanjay.
now.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I'm sure you're sleeping after what, 8 months of really lack of sleep a little bit. So hopefully life looks a little bit better. And I don't know if Douglas, if you're married or not, but if you are married, that could potentially result in a divorce whenever you got something like that going on inside of a relationship. So that's something to think about.
Yeah, well, our family rallied on this one. I mean, I had everyone helping.
Everyone became the office. So when you can't afford management, guess what? You're management. Guess who's leasing at 8 p.m. because you got to get as many people in there as possible. Guess who's going to be there at 9 p.m. It's like you're not only all the pieces that you'd be as an operator, you're all the staff, you're the garbage man, you're anywhere that you see a piece that needs to be fit.
Yeah, you're the expediter.
And if you can do that, though, be able to actually integrate into all those different roles and make them work, that's what makes everything work, because you have to be able to adapt.
And so what is your occupancy now, and what would you?
We just had one vacancy, so we're probably at about 98%.
Damn. Very good. Very good.
What would you estimate?
I think one of the big things too that people don't realize is with these apartment buildings, when you're dealing with a lot of units, that 5%, that 10% vacancy, that's the money that goes in your pocket. So if you're not cash flowing and you're paying all of the bills and you're waiting for money to come in, it's like that last 10% means a lot when you're dealing with a hemorrhaging building.
100%. And something that Christy just brought up, when you get yourself into that position, if a tenant calls you and they want to look at that apartment at 9:30 tonight, you're going out and you're going to show that apartment at 9:30 tonight, because if they stroke you a $600 check, which $600 might not mean much to you, but when you're in that position, I need every $600 that I can get today in order to pay my mortgage payment tomorrow. So you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, we were, man, and you can't let in leasing, what we learned, like you got to return phone calls in 2 minutes. You got to follow up. You've got to call these people, in person, talk to them, schedule the appointment. You got to verify. I mean, there was a whole bunch of stuff.
I'm laying in bed at 2 a.m. on Facebook Messenger, replying back to texts over leasing. I'm like, I'll be there in the morning. What time do you want to see me?
Yeah, 100%.
Morning tenant.
I did want that 2 in the morning tenant, as much as I don't now, but I should.
No, very good point.
Do you have an estimate on how? Do you have an estimate on what the property's worth now?
We haven't had an estimate, but at about a let's say a 7 or an 8, it's probably right around 5 to 6.
There you go.
Good for you.
Let's see, one other question. How many lender frogs did you have to kiss before you were able to refinance? That's the question.
Oh man, fortunately our numbers were working. So, we started out at a low buy. We started out, and even after the renovation was in place and done, we were still at, hovering around 65% of LTV. So, so it was pretty easy to walk into the loan because of the amount of work that we did. So not very many frogs, but it felt like I kissed a bunch.
Any other questions in the chat below, Sanjay? Let me ask one question. I saw Vincent asked, did COVID play any part in any of this?
Oh man, COVID was like the worst thing ever. We went for almost a year when that rent moratorium was in place.
Okay.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's a story in itself. So we got that rent moratorium, and once rumor gets out in a 90 unit or 300 of your units that you don't have to pay rent, nobody pays rent anymore. So we became apartment manager / social worker pieces, and we were contributing. We were helping tenants and facilitating them to fill out all these grants that were available and government subsidy that was available so that we could continue on in business. So that was another thing that you'd think would be bad, but here you go. You just put on a new hat and press through.
Figure things out as you go.
Yeah.
Very good
Yeah.
question. Sanjay, we got any more questions in the chat below, my friend?
Are you, and you're still self-managing, right? The property, so, okay. And let's see, one other question. What sort of cash flow are you getting from the property now?
It depends. We're self-managing, so we don't really figure in a lot of the costs. I mean, if we sorted it out all at the end of the day, it'd probably be about 10 to 15,000 a month.
Here's a question. With so much fraudulent tenant information out there, how do you vet your tenants so that you don't just let them in and turn around and evict them a month later? What's that process look like for you guys?
We have some pretty high standards for renting. So we don't allow anyone with felonies in the last 5 years. We don't allow anybody with violent crimes. We don't allow anyone with drug trafficking crimes. What am I missing?
We handle
no evictions.
We handle all our leasing, background checks and criminal checks through Zillow right now, because we're hands off of that private information when we use Zillow. So that liability.
Whenever you walk around, when you walk around your 90 unit right now, do you know most of the tenants' names? Are you that hands-on with it today?
Yeah, I probably know at least 60-70% of their names, because I started taking over leases 6 months ago. Yeah.
Necessity.
Do you guys use anything like Rhino or anything with your tenants, or have them purchase Rhino as a requirement?
I'm not sure what Rhino is.
Renter's insurance.
Oh, yeah.
All of our tenants have to have renter's insurance. And we were just looking at Zillow just came out with a new product where for $39 a month, they'll cover up to $5,000 worth of lost rents and damages if you go and use their portal. And we use it a lot for the advertising and for response. But we don't know if that's good or not. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw that out there, but we're going to try it. I mean, it seems
definitely worth looking into for sure.
Yeah.
Sanjay, you got any more questions for us?
Let me see.
Here's one of the questions. From the sounds of it, you had a partnership, but it sounds like that partnership was not very experienced. Is that correct or incorrect? Like, that partnership, why did you form that partnership with the person that you did form that partnership? Was it based off of experience, money, capital? They found the deal? Like, how the hell did that happen that you got into this position?
Yeah, it was probably just the need at the time, and he fit the piece. As I look at this in hindsight, I probably should have split off and gone separate direction years ago, And that's another lesson that I learned, is because, if someone's not fitting and if the pieces aren't falling into place and you're not getting the progress that you need, you have to be able to cut that dead weight. As hard as it is and as tough as it is, you've got to be able to let that person go and have his own path or her own path, and then you go your way. I think that was another big lesson, Garrison, is, man, you got to get rid of people who are bringing you down.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
A question I have with that is, when you guys partnered up, was that person supposed to be the operator, or were they more of a property manager prior to this partnership per se?
Well, it wasn't really defined. He took the title COO, so operations and manager kind of went into the same hat.
Were they coming from a management background?
No.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
No management background. It was, we all figured this out as we were going. I just needed help. And man, he was there. So then we started growing. And
actually, because one of the tips I was going to bring up is, one of the things we preach to all of my coaching students is, never partner with your property manager. I've seen this mistake so many times where people partner with their property manager, and then then it's hard enough to fire a partner. That's legitimately like going through a divorce. You
Yeah.
don't want to fire a partner who their sole responsibility is all the operations and they let you hanging and put you in a position similar to what we're talking about today.
Mm-hmm. And make sure.
Oh, go ahead, Doug. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, make sure they have financial skin in the game too. So, you know, it's not just all right, well, I'm sorry, see ya. You know,
100%, 100%. Sanjay, any more questions before I'm just going to open it up and ask anyone to speak up and ask questions once you get through your questions?
There's one more. What's the cash on cash percentage right now?
What did your partner bring to the table?
Headache and
no,
headache and pain in the ass.
yeah, well,
I'm serious.
he brought the pieces that I was missing, and I didn't really know the pieces that I was missing or what that entailed. And that's why, so when it came to dealing with tenants, he would deal with them. When it came to doing some basic project management, he would be able to do that. When it, you know, things like that. I mean, I don't think that he tried to do anything wrong. I just think he just didn't have the skills.
Gotcha.
You have a
Yeah.
lot of interaction with your tenants. Do they know that you are the owners?
Absolutely not.
Good
Absolutely
point. That's a tip that
not.
you should write down.
Yep. When they ask me who the owners are, I say, well, it's an LLC and there's multiple members.
Yeah, I say I'm the leasing agent if I'm going in.
Yeah, I say I'm head of maintenance.
Yeah. I pick
Good.
up the trash too sometimes.
Absolutely. Very good tip. Any more
And-
questions, Ms. Sanjay? And anyone who wants to ask
Yeah,
a question,
sure.
feel
How
free to
did-
speak up.
How did you find the deal? Was it off market? Was it through a broker?
Yeah, it was through this awesome broker that we know named Neil McLaughlin here in the Dayton area. And then another one that we love is Bill Lee with Keller Williams, and he put the whole thing. He put the experience into it for us, and just really made us professional.
So what's your exit strategy for this 90 units?
Well, right now I'm in the process of having bridge loans that I had come up due, so it's probably going to be liquidated. I've thought about it, but the time's ticking, and I was even considering maybe tokenizing it and then putting it to a public and secondary markets, but that's a whole nother story for another thing.
You thought
Did
of
your partners-
1031 exchange into different
Sorry.
property?
Oh, what was that, Rocky?
Have you thought of exchanging into a bigger property, 1031 exchange?
Oh yeah, 1031 is definitely a strategy that I'm considering. I was even considering buying, you know, if we have to get rid of this one, I'll just pay off some of my other LLCs and 1031 into those, so I don't have to worry about the wait time. But it's 1031s are always a good thing, especially if you just
Yeah,
want to do those
That's a
real
well-spoken program, as far as I'm concerned. 1031 exchange, they say swap till you drop. So you keep exchanging, don't sell and take the money.
Yeah, it's true.
When you bought this property, did you utilize cost segregation, bonus depreciation, any of that type of stuff thus far?
No, we not when we bought it, but we did a cost seg about 2 years ago, and that
Good.
was phenomenal.
Good.
I mean, that was
Yeah.
absolutely life-changing.
When you first got into this property, did you even know what cost segregation was, or was that a learning curve for you as well?
Well, I had heard about it, but it was just like a rumor in the wind. It was
Sure.
We definitely perfected it and learned about it with this asset.
And anyone who does not know what cost segregation is, bonus depreciation, long story short, it's a way for you to accelerate that depreciation into the first couple years of ownership. So Elsa just sent me a text message maybe a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to misquote this number, but she said something to the effect of, this year I have a $450,000 tax loss because of all the real estate we bought. Am I off on that number, Elsa? It was something like that you sent me.
It's a little bit more than that.
Okay. So that's a big benefit of these properties as well, and something that you want to take advantage of as you start to purchase these bigger assets. So with that being said, I'm going to open it up. Halisha, I'm going to probably say that wrong. Halisha Moore has her hand up. Feel free to speak up.
Hey, you said it pretty good. I think we talked on the phone a little bit, maybe a couple months ago. But my question is, from the very first time you see a property until you've achieved your exit strategy, do you give yourself like a whole window of, I want to have the property closed within 6 months, own it for 7 years? What's your plan around that? How do you look at the deal at first?
Yeah, so I always have the entrance and exit into my plan whenever I acquire an asset, and I usually have multiple exits, so it would be a refinance or it would be a sale. I always have a game plan for exactly how this thing's going to play out and how long I'm going to keep it, because then I can plan and do the taxes right eventually. But do all those plans work out? No.
It never goes.
Sometimes we have to adjust and just make do. But that's one of the reasons why I have 2 exits, and there'll always be a refinance or a sale, so that I'll know that I'll win in both scenarios.
Good. And to answer that question kind of real quick, you want to be as detailed as possible when you go into a deal. So to answer your question, I want to know how long I'm going to own it for, what my loan looks like. I want to reverse engineer all of that stuff and make sure that I give myself a big enough window so that if we have any headaches, and hopefully we don't have the headaches or the same amount of headaches that these guys came across, and they won't have these headaches on the next one. That's for sure. Now, this is the type of people you want to invest with, right? These are the type of people you want to invest capital with and do deals with because they've showed perseverance. But whenever you get into that deal, you got to reverse engineer that thing, and you want to know, my loan is 5 years. Okay, so in year 4, I want to sell this thing. I want to refinance thing. Okay, so that means in the first 2 years, I got to fix it up. Year 3 is going to be a stabilization time. Year 4 is going to be this. And you want to know all of that stuff going in because you don't want any surprises on the back end. Like I mentioned earlier, this is real money. It seems easy when you're on social media and look at my buddy, I closed 88 apartments. Look at me, I closed 180 apartments. Look at me, I closed another 300 unit apartment building. This is awesome. It's awesome until you got to execute that business plan. It's awesome until you got to pull that investor's capital out, whenever you got to under promise and over deliver on everything that you do in this business, because people give you real money. Someone worked for 40 years at the library in order to give you $50,000. You got to take that seriously. And this is why you want to invest with people who have experience. You want to invest with people who have a track record. You want to invest with people who have a history of making things happen. This is a true story where Elsa and I, we do a lot of recovery capital, and we look at deals that people are failing at. And there's a lot of people failing at a lot of deals right now today in this market. And you're going to see a lot of people who you see on social media, you're going to see their names in the news. So many, over 3 times over the last 3 to 4 weeks, I've heard stories of people who got into situations like this and they disappeared. Douglas and Christy disappeared. You know what? Our investors, it sucks that it didn't work out, but I don't have the energy. I don't have the time. I don't have the focus. I can't make it a win. I don't know what we're going to do. Good luck to you guys. These guys stuck it out. They rolled up their sleeves. They lost sleep. They had headaches. They probably didn't eat some nights, or they ate ramen noodle trying to figure this stuff out. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. You got to do what you got to do. And these are the kind of people you want to surround yourself with moving forward. And so with that being said, Christy and Douglas, make sure you put your contact information in the chat below, because a lot of people are going to blow your phones up. This was very, very good. Do we have any other questions? Anybody wants to speak up? Anybody wants to kind of jump in and throw anything out?
Charles has
Charles hit me, and then Frank Greco hit me. And then I'm not sure if Magina had her hand up or not, but okay, she'll be number 3. Charles, number 1, hit me, my man.
Wow, I just got a quick comment and then a couple light questions, if that's okay. First, I want to say it's the first time I've ever been on Multifamily Masters. I got to tell you, this is
what? Whoa, what? That's bad.
That's bad. Well, I'm being honest with you, man, but it's like a breath of fresh air. I just love this meeting. It was great. The learning experience was fabulous.
Awesome. What's your question, Charles? Hit me, man.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm looking at this thing, it says 13,000 a unit roughly at 1.2 million is this deal. I mean, it just feels like Class D material to me. Why would you walk into that? And I mean, it's almost like you've got an uninhabitable property here. It's like, why would you do that, Dance? And it just seems like this thing's just singing with deferred maintenance. So to Douglas, I say, man, you're a well, I don't want to say warrior, but that's a common used word. But I would say reality is that why would you do this, Dance? Because it just seems like you got a war of just getting uphill. I've been through this on a 14 unit in the East Bay area of the San Francisco Bay Area. So I feel your pain, man. I've been
Hit
through
me,
this.
Douglas. Why would you do this, man? Why would you buy a shithole for 13 grand a door, man?
I have no idea now. But here, you know,
Nothing but love for you, brother.
we buy houses like all our flip houses are like this, and I've just become accustomed to when I see those holes in the walls and I smell that smell, it just smells like money to me.
Yeah.
And if you get the right team going, if you get, you know, you endure just a little bit, man, these projects actually become easier the more you do them.
Man, that's
Very good point.
Class D minus. I would never start with Class D minus. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I've done the same mistake, and I've lived to regret it. I've almost lost my life on this stuff. So I mean, it's like not good. So I had to ask the question. And my other thing is, why do self-management? Why are you taking this on yourself without a third-party manager?
Because property managers suck. But go ahead, Douglas,
Well, we
man. Hit
know
me with
that,
whatever you
but I
got.
mean,
Well, Dayton didn't have management at that time. It's not like we had all these choices. You can just go out and pick this top manager.
Yeah,
It's like,
there's 3
what
of them.
what area of crap do you want to sit in today? It's like you may as well bring it in house because at least you're accountable, you're responsible, you can control the pieces.
right.
It may not have been controlled the most efficiently in this case, but oh my gosh, we learned a lot going forward.
Cool. So the moral of the story is that you people, with all due respect, feel that you're the best manager out of anybody because you're on it.
Well, we certainly have the most skin in the game, and if there's a light bulb to be changed, we're not going to charge ourselves $65. You know, it's better if we take the management piece upon ourselves. We're paying our staff anywhere from $18 to $22 an hour to do stuff that would normally be upcharged and marked up.
Right.
And that's another one of those things where I'm a glutton for punishment. I'll be honest with you, Charles, but it does get easier. At first, we did this out of necessity because, man, we were paying debt service in our pockets with our first assets because our management bills were so high and they were taking 10% of our gross.
Right.
So okay. I mean, I get the necessity for them. I truly do, and I have a lot of respect for what they do. But when it comes to our stuff, I just want a little more control.
Okay.
And Charles here, I'll throw a little bit of a nugget out for Christy. Christy runs a construction management company where she manages construction projects across the country for people.
Sweet.
She's very good at this. I've actually paid her to manage construction projects for us. So that goes into a lot of the part of them being so hands-on and whatnot.
Nice. Nice.
Absolutely. Any other quick questions, Charles,
Hey,
before I
thank
move
you.
on to the next one?
Frank,
Perfect,
did-
Charles. Much appreciated, my man. Magina, hit me. I might have said that wrong. Is it Magina? Is that how you say it? I was just on
It's
stage with
not.
Magina. Oh, say it again.
It's Migana.
Migana. I was just on stage with Migana at Capital Raising what was it called? Capital Raising Summit.
Heroes Capital Raise.
Yeah, Heroes Capital Raise in Houston, Texas. She's a rock star. She raises a lot of capital. Go ahead and I'm not going to butcher your name again, but hit me with your question, miss.
Megan is fine. Hi, everybody. Oh, I just wanted to say how awesome it was to share the stage with you. And I first met you on Zoom, and then meeting you in real life matched perfectly. So it was very good to see that you are equally cool on stage, off stage, behind the scenes.
Hey, can you put this in writing? Can you put this in writing?
Yes, absolutely. I will, and I will sign it. I also wanted to ask about the Facebook group that you have. Is that the Multifamily Masters, the the MFM, because there's so many groups. I'm trying to find the right one. And if there is a way for you to drop the link for all of us newbies to join your group, I would really appreciate it. And also a quick question for the presenters. You guys were awesome, but if you can give us what not to do if you were to start all over again without thinking, because so much was said, and I just want the one thing that you would not do if you were to repeat the process.
Yeah, I think that's easy. I would start and perfect my craft. I would start, with something small like 10 or 20 units and just really hone in, get the policies and the procedures down to where I could toss that and hand that to somebody and they would be able to do it flawlessly with a little bit of supervision. I think that's probably what I would do. Yeah. I mean, I would want to be able to depend on everyone around me and be able for the machine to flow.
Yeah, that's really important. The team is so important too. It's like getting those pieces together with people that are competent, not just because you like them or you think they can do a good job. They actually have to know what they're doing and they have to be damn good at it, not just a little bit, or they can do it sometimes. They have to be competent.
Very good point. Very good question. You got another question for us, Miss?
What's the secret to the feminine and the masculine energy working together without strangling each other?
Dave grips her up often. I mean, Douglas grips her up often.
It's because Doug's the boss. You can only have one boss. I don't care who you are and what partnership that you're in. There has to be a leader and there has to be a 51% of someone who can make the final decision. So any partnership that you go in, somebody has to be able to say, we're going this way. So there's no conflict and you both know that one of you is going to have that pool at the end of the day.
And there's a beauty about the feminine and masculine energy that complements each other. So together, if it's done right, it's a perfection, really.
I love it because I have an older brother, and yeah, of course, in the Albanian community, men are the leaders, but so are the women. We are also very strong, and I just wanted to understand the dynamic, and when there's misunderstandings or like disagreements. Oh my God, I couldn't think it. I was just trying to understand how you resolve when you don't see eye to eye, because I don't care that you are married, that you are brother and sister, that your son and parent or whatever, there's always misunderstandings. I just wanted to know how you come back and resolve those issues, because I've been in operations for 2 decades here in New York City. Managed over 20 million square feet of space in Class A commercial, and it doesn't matter. There's always disagreements. I just wanted to understand what's like a key ingredient that makes this flawless, even though there's no such thing, but close to it. That's all. And I appreciate the answer at the 150%.
I think for me is just to kind of disassociate with myself and put myself in that other person, whoever it may be, space. You know what I mean? And figure out, if I'm seeing this like this is me seeing this. Why am I interpreting this like this? That was kind of weird, but I mean, I would put myself in the other person's position and wonder, hey, why are they thinking like this? And why don't I agree with it? So I would, I'd kind of step back from myself.
Douglas is very intuitive. And so when you say there's disagreements or there's arguments, he's telling me, well, have you looked at the greater good? Have you looked at this on what we're giving? Have you looked inside yourself to see why you're being a dick? And it's like, he calls you out on what's going on. So it's not like a disagreement when somebody is putting it on a personal development level and learning lessons and what are we taking out of this? And the biggest thing is that there's a goal. Yeah. We know where we're going. We can be hitting bumps in the road, but we know where we're going. There's no question about where we're going to end up. And it makes it really easy to navigate when you know where you're going.
And so Douglas gave the politically correct answer to that. With Elsa and myself, now we're not brother and sister, but we arm wrestle. When we come to a disagreement, we arm wrestle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Haven't tried that one.
I don't think I'm gonna win ever.
I like it though.
Right. Right, Elsa? We arm wrestle.
That's not right. Garrison,
I gotta mute Elsa real quick. Next question. Next question.
I think Al had a question.
Hold on. Let me hit Frank. Frank Greco. Where's he at? Hit me, brother.
Hey, Gigi, thanks. Thanks for the presentation. For those of you, and this is more of like a comment than it is a question, and just for the benefit of everybody in the room. And for those of you who don't know me, I own and manage my own, self-manage my own portfolio. And if I'm not doing that, which takes me about 10 hours a month, I'm riding my motorcycle around the country, whatever, just doing.
And he's a world-renowned economist. I'll throw it out there, even though he won't throw it out there.
I'm a recovering economist. And I damaged myself even more so by going to law school, and that's the point of my topic. So years ago, I did have a couple of partnerships. I had bought my last partner out about 4 years ago. And for anybody, and when you were talking about the partnership, it's like, yeah, a guy came along, whatever, you may have known each other, it just seemed to work. I would just advise anybody who's thinking about getting involved in the partnership and you're going into business and there's real money, go to a lawyer, and it's costly, but work out all the end details. What happens if the partner dies? Do I inherit his wife or a significant other as a partner? Who does what? Have that all spelled out. What happens when more money is needed to be put in by the partners and they don't do it? What's the time frame for them to put the money in? And if they don't do it, what happens? Do you carry life insurance policies that the business pays for on the individual partners, with the partnership, the LLC, being the beneficiary? These are all things that you need to work through, and it's time consuming and it's hand wringing and it's uncomfortable. But if you don't do it, Gigi said it before very well, it is like getting a divorce.
And you gotta ask the hard questions going in.
Absolutely.
You want to understand what the hell is going to happen if we do X, if we do Y, if we do Z. You want to know those answers today in case they happen in 2 or 3 years from now, because potentially at some point in time, communication will break down amongst the two partners, and potentially there'll just be lawyers talking back and forth, and everything reverts back to the paperwork and the operating agreement that Mr. Frank is talking about right now. Right, Frank?
Yep, absolutely. And the last partner that I bought out 4 years ago, we went through that process. We went through 6 months of, having discussions, sipping coffee together, going to the lawyer, whatever. It might have been like 10 grand. It was the best 10 grand we ever spent, but we ended amicably, but we lasted 20 years. We were 20 years together as a partner. He had his role, I had my role, but it worked out well and everything was spelled out. And again, when I was hearing that about the partnership, I was like, oh my God, like, what are you doing?
So with that being said, Douglas, did you have an operating agreement in effect? Was it very detailed, as in, if we're going to break up, this happens, that happens, this is how we split up assets? Like, what did that breakup look like?
Yeah, so the operating agreement that we had wasn't that detailed. It was kind of a template that we found. But having that operating agreement is just absolutely critical, and that's probably the best advice that I've heard for partnerships, out of anything. I spent more money on giving you my lawyer's opinion on what I could do than I did writing that operating agreement. And if that operating agreement would have had the time and patience that it deserved, this thing would have just ended seamlessly and everyone would have just gone their separate ways. So Frank, I gotta hand it to you. That's fantastic advice. Hindsight's
2020. You won't make the same mistake next time, Mr. Douglas.
Yep.
100%. Good question, Frank. Good question. You got anything else for us, my man?
No, that's really like the red belt. That was the thing that was just, it banged me on the head. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta say something about that, but Everything else, yeah, it's there's a lot of learning lessons. I think Gigi picked up on a lot of the points. Elsa did. Yeah, you have to pay attention. I agree with the consensus that management teams, property managers, and I'll take it one step further. Sometimes you'll hear some people talk about, oh, like, we have partners and we have this and we have that. And I'm not very active on social media. I kind of pulled back about a year ago. But I would see this, these things being, oh, well, we're partnering with our property management company, we're partnering with this, we're partnering with that. At the end of the day, I would never say that my lawyer is my partner, my accountant is my partner. And I love these guys, and they protect me. I just came off of closing. I just picked up a small piece of property that I wanted to play with in my spare time because I was getting bored. And it's winter time and I can't ride the motorcycle as much, right? But I was in contract for a year and 3 months because it was a state sale and it was, whatever. The point is, they're not my partners. They will never be my partners. I love them. They are paid professionals. And I expect what I'm expecting from my paid professionals, they better meet that bar, and I've gone through lawyers, I've gone through a bunch of people, I have my team, so does less, but they're not really my team. They're not my partners. They're paid professionals. So it's just a little nuance of words here, but be careful who you say partner. If that other person is not has their signature on a signed document, a detailed operating agreement that's 30 plus pages, no partnership exists.
Absolutely.
So,
very good
go
point.
forward, and I wish you the best of luck with your properties. And it's unfortunate. It sounds like it's a cash flow king, but too bad. You might have to unload it or whatever. I never sold a property yet.
Let's wrap this up. One more question from Mr. Al Barkalow. If I butchered your name, I apologize, my man.
Unmute.
Can't hear you, Al.
Yeah, we
Sounds
can't
like
hear
you're
you.
mute.
I'm muted, but not sure why we can't hear.
No,
you.
he's not muted, but his microphone may not be working.
If you want to type the question in below, Al, we can probably read it, but definitely can't hear you, my friend.
Oh no.
He was just calling in to congratulate you, Douglas. Way to turn that sucker around. Way to make big things happen, man. Way to be proactive. Way to turn a negative into a positive. With that being said, we ran this party late tonight. It is 7:10 right now. Normally we'd break out into breakout sessions. The heck with that. Let's rock and roll. Super appreciative. I'm gonna let this channel on. I'm going to end the recording, but I'm going to let this channel open. Anyone wants to hang out here, network, get to know one another, ask questions. We'll keep it on until the last person leaves. Thank everyone for showing up. I appreciate it. We had about 100 people on for most of the night.
And then last note, Garrison. Sorry,
Yep.
on the last note, Doug, if you find another deal like this, we'll partner with you.
Thanks.
Hey, hold on, Douglas. She is saying, hold up. She is saying that, but we did not partner with him whenever it came time to turn this thing around, Elsa.
Well, that was a hard sale, Garrison.
I'll do it at a hard
Yeah.
That was a hard sale. Yeah.
And it was
I
a hard sale when we saw the writing on the wall for deals starting to go south. So we're just super conservative. But man, you are a rock star, both of you, Douglas and Christy. Like, not many people would have turned this thing around. Not many people would have stuck in there. You need to literally congratulate yourself, pat yourself on the back. This is what it takes to be a real estate investor. This is what it takes to win. It's not all about the good things that you see on social media. It's all about doing what the hell you have to do. Everyone, reach out to Douglas, reach out to Christy. These are good people. These are people that you want to invest with. These are people that you want to stand next to. These are people that you want to do deals with. Thank you guys so much. We are Multifamily Masters. Elsa Nguyen, Sanjay Patel. My name is Garrison Gilbert. We'll see you next month, third Wednesday of the month. Mark your calendars today, unless that's Christmas week. I don't know. That's the only reason that we would skip it. Awesome. See you guys.
Thanks,
Thank you, Garrison.